going on, boys? GZTV here, back with another video. I know I wasn't expected to release this video, but I did. I am, and I'm gonna talk about the NBA here for a little bit, not for too long. You know, I'm gonna get into each player, maybe talk about them for about 30 seconds. It's gonna be a shorter version of what I normally do, but we have at 25, Ja Morant, the elite point guard, has returned into the All-Star standings, and that's always awesome to hear. You know, he just came back from an injury, and he's been playing phenomenal, so he definitely deserves to be there, leading the Memphis to a pretty solid year. And a guy that's not leading his team to a solid year, but he's definitely All-Star level at 24, we have Christian Wood. Christian Wood's an absolute bucket. He can shoot from anywhere. I mean, he's an undersized center, but you know the Rockets are definitely known to run that type of center around. But you know, he plays like a big man. Definitely. Yeah, not the best Rockets team, but Christian Wood is that big star they have. Again, I'm not going to talk about them for that much because I need to kind of get this video out of the way so I can study for math. But at 23, a guy who's been here all year, Jonas Valanciunas. This is a very familiar face for this list. Great scoring big. You know, he's kind of fallen off recently. You know, he's borderline All-Star at this point. Back then, he was like damn near a starter in the All-Star game. But, you know, obviously he fell off now. Brandon Ingram's back. He's kind of taking that spotlight a little bit. But I think Valanciunas is really still the only All-Star on that team. I think Brandon Ingram definitely has to prove himself. He has to fight through all these injuries that his skinny frame has to fight through. But yeah, moving on to 22 is a great scorer, one of the better shooting guards in the NBA. We're talking about Utah Jazz shooting guard Donovan Mitchell. I mean, one of the most dominant teams in the NBA. And it's not led by Donovan Mitchell because there is another guy leading the charge, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. One of the most impactful players in the NBA in a little bit, but we have a great scorer in Donovan Mitchell. He's pretty streaky. You know, he's not consistently a good scorer, but he can just get the job done, and you don't really need him to score 30 when you got Rudy Gobert out there, which we will talk about in a little bit. Coming up at number 21 is a guy on a pretty bad team, one of the worst in the league. We're talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This guy's an all-star regardless of what people may think, think, whatever. He's just a really good scorer. He leads them in scoring pretty much every single night they play. There's really not much else to say. You know, Josh Giddey's a pretty good facilitator for them, but Shai's really what gets it done for that team when they win. When they win, you can most likely credit it to Shai Gilgeous. You know, Lou Dort will have a good game here and there, but yeah. Moving on to number 20, a guy that doesn't lead his team because there's another All-Star. There's a couple teams in the NBA that have some All-Star tandems, duos. It's been like that for a couple years, obviously. We're talking about LaMelo Ball in his sophomore year. He is a top 20 NBA player. Big jump. I mean, previously he was probably about top 40. Now he's top 20. I think he's only going to get better and better and better, and he's competing with some of the best players in the league for all-star positions. Very good facilitator. He can get triple-doubles on any given night. Lob City with Bridges, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Yeah, really good player, really entertaining. That Charlotte Hornets team is really, really entertaining. One of the most entertaining teams to watch in the NBA, and mostly is because of LaMelo, and they're playing pretty solid. Next, on a kind of streaky Bulls team, you know, they're up and down. Really, this is the only All-Star at this point because, you know, as you guys know, Zach LaVine is hurt, and Vucevic, he's been hurt a couple of times. So this is a somewhat injured Bulls team, and they've still maintained a really good season. I'm talking about DeMar DeRozan. A lot of people are saying he's an MVP candidate. I wouldn't put him that high of a regard, but they're still a really good team. I mean, if you want to solely take record into account and take the best player off the team with the best record in the league, I guess, or one of the best records in the league, DeMar DeRozan is definitely a candidate, but I just think that's a corrupt way of thinking of the MVP of the NBA. Next, we're going to talk about this Raptors team, who's mediocre. You know, they were up at one point really, really well, and they've kind of faltered a little bit, but I wouldn't count them out from anything. We're talking about this Raptors team. We're talking about Fred VanVleet, their lone all-star on the team. He's had a very, very impressive year. He's impressed a lot of people in the NBA. You know, Siakam's not really playing very well this year, and I don't think he can maintain a healthy season, really. He has a weird frame, and that plays a big factor in injury proneness of NBA players. So, yeah, it's a pretty underrated thing to think about. VanVleet can drop a 30-point triple-double, and no commentators, no reporters, no ESPN analyst will talk about it. This guy is so under the radar, and he's really good. He deserves to be an all-star. At number 17, a guy you'd expect to see up here. He's on a Timberwolves team that's kind of disappointed a lot of people. You know, when you have a core of D'Lo, Ant, and Cat, who we're about to talk about. Cat is the only guy performing at an all-star level this year. Anthony Edwards is pretty borderline, but I'm not going to give it to him because there's just so many other players in the league that are better than him. I would say Anthony Edwards is about top 40, top 35 in the league, and I'll do a top 100 list at the end of the year if you guys would like. But coming up next is one of the most entertaining players in the NBA to watch. He's been going on a tear lately, and honestly, this season, he's been going on a tear. A most improved player candidate on the Hornets. You guys should know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Miles Bridges. This guy's absolutely incredible. Such a good player, so entertaining. You know, he's a great finisher at the rim. He can shoot. He's developed his game so well. The guy out of Michigan State, you know, they've bred some great NBA talents, and he's starting to become a great example of one of them. And it's great. I really want to get a Miles Bridges jersey. He really is like one of my favorite players in the league. I love watching Miles Bridges play. That Hornets team is so fun. Hope they can make a playoff run. That would be awesome. Moving on to number 15, a guy on this Knicks team that was up at a point, but they have just been playing like garbage. The ball has been between him and RJ Barrett's hands, and it hasn't really worked recently. RJ Barrett's actually playing really good. He's not an all-star, of course, because he hasn't maintained that for the whole season. We're talking about Julius Randle, though. Julius Randle is still, nonetheless, a top 15 player in the NBA. He's really good. He can score from anywhere. He finds his spots. He's clutch. He does a lot of good things for this team. He can rebound. He's like this smaller four, stocky, very aggressive. I love the way Julius Randle plays. Ever since his most improved season last year, he has been shocking the world by playing absolutely great basketball. Coming up at number 14, this guy is skyrocketed in the rankings, mostly because of his 30, 40, even 50-point games. We're talking about, of the 76ers, Joel Embiid, and yeah, maybe he should be higher, because last year he was an MVP candidate, but of course the injury set him back, and there's players that have been consistently playing this year that are above him. Joel Embiid, man, he's impressive, I gotta say. You know, my Celtics and that Sixers team is a rivalry, but I gotta give respect where it's due because Joel Embiid is playing absolutely phenomenal. Man, I got a fucking math test tomorrow, but Joel Embiid is playing absolutely phenomenal this year. Can't wait to see what the future holds for him. You know, he's got a supporting cast of Tobias Harris, Seth Curry. That doesn't seem like much, but when you watch them play, they play pretty well together. Ben Simmons is still unknown on what he's doing, but moving on to number 13, the veteran point guard, one of the best passers in NBA history and currently the best passer in the NBA. We're talking about Chris Paul. And Chris Paul is very overhated for whatever reason. People want to talk so much shit on me putting him in the top 15, but he's maintained a top 15 spot all year. I mean, statistically, he has played up to par with some of the best players in the NBA, and he's led the Suns to such a good record. Devin Booker is not an all-star, which is kind of crazy, but I mean, Devin Booker's gone through injuries. Chris Paul's been playing all year, and he's put the Suns team on his back when Devin Booker was gone, and I think that's a great thing to see. I think the Suns are the best team in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken. I think the Warriors have had a couple mishaps. I'm not really sure, though. That's all I have to say about Chris Paul. Great passer. He can find the mid-range spot, but anyways, a guy that is injured on this Nets team. There are two really good Nets players. You guys should know who else it is. I'm talking about the injured Kevin Durant. And taking his place is Kyrie Irving, which is pretty awesome to see that. You know, KD kind of has a scoring replacement with Kyrie. Kyrie's pretty much putting 20-point games up left and right when he gets the opportunity. He's taking advantage of his opportunities with what he has because, I mean, I don't have any problem with him being anti-vax. But, I mean, as long as he plays really good when he gets the chance, it's awesome, and he is doing that. So that's a really good thing. Kevin Durant, he's a great scorer. He's the best scorer in the league. And I say this over and over, possibly one of the best scorers in NBA history. This guy is just so good at scoring. He pulls up, stops on a dime, and just, it's going in. I mean, he's lengthy. He's got the handles of like a 6'3" point guard. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. His crossover's lethal. He can make some space for himself. He's a very good shot creator. What else can I say about Kevin Durant? He's a very good player. He's been doing this for a while, so obviously he's got some merit there. Coming in at number 11, is of the Jazz team. We're talking about Rudy Gobert. I talked about Donovan Mitchell here a little bit earlier, and Rudy Gobert is better than Kevin Durant this year as of right now. Statistically, Rudy Gobert is putting up numbers. He's one of the best defensive players in the league. He's one of the best. I think he is the best rebounder in the league while still putting up 15 points a game. 15 points a game for Rudy Gobert is very, very impressive, and this is possibly his best season yet. And it's crazy to say because he's had some great seasons over the past few years. But yeah, Rudy Gobert, shout out to the Utah Jazz for continuing to get it done in the West. They play some pretty difficult teams over there. They mostly do play Western teams. I have the hiccups like crazy. And there's a reason they're always on that late night game on ESPN. They're just so fun to watch. Obviously, because they're a West Coast team, but because they're so fun to watch. And at number 10, though, the man himself, the 37-year-old, still in his prime somehow, has finally crept his way into top 10. We have LeBron James of the Los Angeles Lakers. Wow, Anthony Davis is back tonight. That's amazing. I'm shooting this on Tuesday, obviously, because I'm live streaming. You guys should know that. I didn't do it Monday because I didn't really have time, but I found some time tonight to do it. So, yeah, we'll have our sports content done for the week. That's pretty awesome. But LeBron at 10, he is a fucking animal. LeBron is so good at what he does. He can do anything. There's nothing that LeBron can't do, and I have to give him this credit right now. I have his jersey right over there. You guys can't see it on camera, but I have it right over there. I gotta show him some love. I mean, the King is back, baby. He's playing like an MVP. Obviously, the Lakers are kind of struggling a little bit, but as long as they make the playoffs, expect a playoff push from LeBron. If LeBron makes the playoffs, he's not going down without a fight. That's all I have to say there. Moving on to number 9 is his teammate, surprisingly still having a better season. LeBron did have a little injury. You got to give him a break. Russell Westbrook's been fairly healthy throughout the year, but yes, we're talking about Russell Westbrook, and obviously Anthony Davis has faded out of my top 25 just because of injuries, but Russell Westbrook is in the top 10. I mean, he's had some pretty good games this year. What can I say? I mean, he's a bit of a stat pattern. There is some controversy with that, and I don't fully, wholeheartedly disagree, but I don't fully agree either. Because a decent amount of the stuff that Russell Westbrook does is necessary. Now, when his teammates let him get rebounds, that's kind of stat padding. I'm not going to lie. But, he can drive to the rim. He had a crazy dunk on Rudy Gobert last week. They play some tough teams. I mean, you got to give him a break. They play some very, very tough teams being in the West. But, yeah, Russell Westbrook. At number 8, this guy deserves to be on a better team, and he needs to be traded immediately. We're talking about the Indiana Pacers' own, the white Paul George for them right now, the frickin' Domantas Sabonis. He is easily a top 10 player in the NBA. He is playing so good. 40-point double-doubles. I mean, he's so good at scoring. He's widened his range year in and year out. Miles Turner's not there, so obviously he has to play a little better, and they still lose. I mean, this Pacers team is hopeless. They've tried to rebuild for years and years and years, and it just hasn't worked, so they need to just explode the franchise. I don't know. Maybe trade with another team. I don't know what they're supposed to do, but moving on to number 7, my favorite player in the NBA, and he has been consistently a top 10 player all year. We're talking about Jason Tatum. Just came off of a 51-point game, 10 rebounds, off of a big shooting slump of missing. Yes, you're getting it right. Wait. 20 3-pointers. Yes, that's right. Jason Tatum has missed 20 straight 3-pointers, and then he comes out, shoots like, what was it? Like 6 for 7 from 3, and the rest were 2-pointers. I mean, wow. He played incredible. Played really good against the Wizards. Let me actually check the game against the Kings right now, because I believe, oh my goodness, they shit on the Kings. No mercy. Tatum put up 36. Jaylen Brown put up 30 and 10. Again, Jaylen Brown's been in the All-Star conversation before, but injuries have faded him out, as have a lot of players in the NBA faded out of this conversation with injuries. But the people that consistently play and consistently put up good numbers deserve to be on the list. So, Jason Tatum at number 7 anyways. Moving on to number 6. He's had a really good week. Steph Curry had a really good week last week. We're talking about the Warriors here. Obviously, Steph Curry's been there his whole career. Yeah, Steph Curry, man. I mean, what else is there to say about the guy? The 3-point god. Klay Thompson's back, so obviously that's going to give him some chemistry. Draymond Green's always out there to be a leader. We're still awaiting James Wiseman's return, hopefully for the playoffs maybe, because we're getting to that point where maybe James Wiseman should just sit out for the playoffs and play some more meaningful minutes, because they're almost guaranteed a playoff spot at this point. But Steph Curry, he's playing really good. At number 5, we have Trae Young, which is very disappointing. Well, I love Trae Young. Trae Young's another one of my favorite players in the league. It really is him, Miles Bridges, and Jason Tatum as like my favorite players in the NBA. KD a little bit as well. I like Russell Westbrook too. Trae Young though, he's a beast. He puts up 36 and like 11, and his team can't close out for whatever reason. They have the pieces to do so. They have a young core to build upon. Maybe it's just a work in progress. Maybe it's a 76ers trust the process type of thing. I mean, they are in the same conference. There's a lot of teams like that, a lot of young cores. But Trae Young is fully developed. I don't think Trae Young can get much better than he is right now. He is playing at peak performance, and that is why he's a top 5 player in the NBA. People want to hate on him for no fucking reason. I don't get it. Trae Young. Moving on, and number 4. You guys may be surprised to hear this, but we're talking about a struggling Spurs team. DeJounte fucking Murray is top 5. DeJounte Murray is top 5. You can't tell me a guy that puts up a 20-point triple-double every single night isn't top 5. I think he literally averages 28 and 8. That is like beyond impressive. I mean, that's MVP level. Like, you put him on a winning team, and everybody's going to be talking about him. I mean, this guy's a beast. The Spurs have faded out in the media over the years, but dude, DeJounte Murray might just put him back on the map. I mean, keep him on that team for sure. I mean, he's your franchise tag. You want to pick someone else up, and dude, screw it. I mean, if DeMar DeRozan's like down to come back, if the Bulls have a disappointing season, just come back and play with DeJounte Murray. That'd be a great team, great duo. Like, he's a better version of Lonzo, pretty much. He's got a lengthy frame. He's a really good point guard. He does everything. Moving on to number 3, these are my MVP candidates, and they are unchanged from last week, so I shouldn't talk too much about these guys. We're talking about the Nets, first of all, James Harden, in replacement of KD. Him and Kyrie are working together, but obviously James Harden has been playing better. He's an MVP candidate. I don't want to hear it. He's back into his MVP form. You know, he's had a couple slouchy years. Last year was not his best year with the Nets. I think he was with the Nets last year. I get the NBA kind of blurred up. But James Harden, I don't really have to explain myself that James Harden deserves to be here. Moving on to number 2 is one of the most dominant players, one of the most like on paper dominant players in NBA history. We're talking about the 7-foot, 3 steps from half court, and he's dunking it. Giannis, man. Wait, let me see if you guys can see it. Right there, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I do have Devin Booker right underneath, and there's Kyrie Irving actually. There's a Jason Tatum signed autographed card. There's a bobblehead, and there's a Ruffles. That's my setup. I just wanted to give you guys a little tour of my setup. But we're talking about Giannis. I mean, he's led the Bucks to, over the last 2 years, to really good season. Oh, honestly, 3 or 4 years the Bucks have been good ever since his MVP candidacies and wins and all that stuff. But Giannis, number 1 is statistically, like, he's going to go down as one of the best NBA players of all time. I know that's wild to hear, but he does everything, like, to the extreme too. Like, he's top 10 in everything, and people still don't want to give him his respect. You're not telling me that Steph Curry is having a better season than Jokic. You're not telling me that KD is. You're not even telling me Giannis or Harden is. It's clear as day. You're not telling me LeBron is either. It's clear as day. Jokic is the best player in the NBA, and that's not even. I'm not biased at all. Like, there's no reason for me to be biased. I'm not a Nuggets fan. I'm not a Jokic fan. Jokic is the best player in the NBA. I don't want to have to keep arguing my position, but people don't listen. Jokic is the best player in the NBA. Can't argue it. That's pretty much the video, though. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. It's always been GZ TV. I'm so happy I got to get this video out to you as soon as possible. Obviously, my Mondays are pretty busy, so I don't know when I'm going to keep that consistency up, but I'll see you.